So how to invest in apartment buildings, right? So that's what this one's about, and I'm pretty excited about it. This is my second most favorite topic, the first being the Burr method, because that's what I use for all my properties. So I love Burr, but I'm burring to get to this, right? So um, who am I? Will Holder. I run the William Holder Realty team and Remax Classic. Um, and I run this group, like I was discussing with you guys, for networking, other investors, like-minded people, growing my database and scaling up together. So it's been the whole point of this. And, it's taken time, but I'm okay with that because in the time I've learned more myself. Um, and essentially what I'm looking to accomplish with this group is the same thing I say every month. I at some point want to do deals together. If it's representing you as an agent, that's fine. But, my end goal is to have passive income paying my bills. I'll still probably sell real estate because like you, I can't sit at home. Like most of us, we have that itch. So I love doing what I do, but I also like knowing that the bills are paid if I can't do what I do. So and then how to connect with me, you guys, meetup page, Facebook, William Holder Realty, uh, email Will at William Holder Realty, cell phone 610-657-6215. I always, whenever people come on the Zoom, I always panic when it's like something I haven't seen before because we had a crazy thing happen. Were you here for that? Dude, I like my second one of doing this like a year and a half ago. I got this weird message come up and it was like, Zoom is trying to enter the chat. And I'm like, well, I'm in a Zoom. So I declined it and then it popped up again. And I declined that again. And then I guess the decline button ended up being the accept button because they switched it. And it's just the most graphic video came up. I'll show you. I have a recorded them as I saved the recording. I was like, oh my God, somebody has a lot of time to waste, because it didn't do anything. Like, you're not hacking my computer. You just wait. I mean, I guess it was funny. But anyway. All right. So I'll, kind of go around the room. If you guys don't mind telling me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll do everyone on the Zoom. I can just reiterate what they say on the Zoom as well. So, we'll do it real quick. Chris.
Contractor by trade. And and I'm looking to get into scaling up markets. Anywhere.
Awesome. Awesome.
My name is Harrison Woods. I'm a partner.
Awesome.
And I'm Joel Metzler and Will's neighbor. He's got me flipping my first house. House.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm infectious. Uh, and then for everyone on the Zoom, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I can go first. Hi,
Sure.
everyone. I'm Girish Jain. I'm totally new to this
Hold on,
area.
hold on 1 second. Let me just put you on the speaker so everyone can hear you here.
Okay. I hope you guys can see me also, I guess. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes. Yep. You can go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So hello, everyone again. So I'm new. I became a real estate agent last month, and I've just I have few investors I'm working with right now who are at different levels. Like somebody's looking at apartment units, somebody's looking at a land, somebody's looking at a townhome. So I'm just trying to join this community and see how I can get help from you guys to help my clients, pretty much. And then eventually I can also help as needed in this group.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, Chris, you want to go next?
Sure. So my name is Chris Lebo. I just bought my first property. It's a duplex. I'm actually here right now. I'm going to be sanding, spackling, and painting while listening to this. But looking to continue to gain more knowledge. Hopefully, continue to invest in more multi-families. That's kind of what I'm looking to keep going on with.
All right, that one's a little muffled, but Chris is new investor as well. He's hey, how are you? Good. He's just bought his first duplex, and he's actually there right now doing some work on it. So uh Brandy, you want to go next?
Sure. Hey, Brandy Morris. I met Will. We used to work together at a credit union, and so we've reconnected years later to do some deals. He was my realtor when I purchased a property. So I have 5 doors, and I'm just here to continue to scale up my portfolio. And apartment building is definitely something I would want to add to my portfolio. So I'm here to just get some more information about it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. And Rylan Realty, I saw. Are you on?
Yeah, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, my name's Jay Ryland. I am a struggling investor that is finding limitations on scaling my projects. Currently have 9 doors that are all under construction, and I'm having trouble when it comes to managing projects, losing contractors, and how to pivot when unexpected things happen. That being said, I focus on co-living and renting out rooms with like like lease agreement, like membership type deals. So I look forward to growing and just trying to see how I can help others, but at the same time, figuring out how to, like I said, scale and keep on moving forward and not have as many learning lessons.
Awesome. You said you're doing 9 doors at one time right now. 9 individual houses or 9 in one building?
No. So I have a quadplex, and I have a couple other like 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms that are under construction.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay. And we have a new person in the room.
I'm just the other half of Rylan Realty. I'm his wife.
Oh,
I don't
I saw two Rylands and I'm like, I think it's the same person.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
his wife. I wanted to join in. He told me a lot about you, and I'm super excited to be here and learn some more. So, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Kulina Jay. I'm also a real estate investor. I have 4 doors right now, 2 duplexes, and I'm working currently to get a DSCR loan on one of them to just continue to scale. I would like to eventually move into apartment buildings as well, and I saw this on Eventbrite, so what about
Awesome.
to network. So
What was your name again?
my name is Quabino.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So for anyone that didn't hear, I'm getting microphones. I'm going to get better at this. I've ordered microphones and a nice camera and stuff. But if anyone didn't hear on here, you said 4 doors.
4 doors.
Where are you located?
So I have one in Delaware County and I have one in Philadelphia.
Okay. So DELCO in Philly and looking to scale up. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So one second, I'm going to share my screen here. All right, so everyone can see this, right? Okay. All right, so important legal stuff. Don't sue me, please. Anything I say here, it's just free info. Not charging for it because it's just free info, right? So I will also post this video on our social medias. So anything you say, your voice could be heard. If you're on the Zoom, your face might be seen. So just so you know. But there you go. All right, so let's get into the pros and cons of buying apartments, right? And if anyone, on the Zoom or in person wants to chime in or add anything, again, I'm learning too. So please feel free to share. I love it. I don't know everything. No one does, right? So pros of buying apartment buildings. You can increase your income stream and wealth faster by buying one large building instead of buying several single family homes. I think that goes without saying. A lot of people like single family. However, there's risk, right? You have a single family, you have a single door. If that door is vacant, you're 100% vacant, right? You have a 10 unit and you have a single door, you're 10% vacant. So much less risk when you have more doors under one roof, right? The other thing is you could diversify your risk if, one unit goes vacant. You can massively increase the value of the asset by adding value and raising rents. And that's something we're going to get into, but it's not just about raising rents. You can add a laundry room with income. You can if you find an asset, like we have a building, we found that there's been a commercial unit vacant forever. And it's just because the owner didn't want to deal with it. So he just used it as storage. So I didn't even factor that into our evaluation of buying the building because I thought, well, maybe he had trouble renting it this long for a reason. And I kind of threw it on the market just to see what would happen. And within like a month, I had a convenience store that was all over me to get into it. And since then, I've had a couple other convenience stores call. So I'm like, well, I need to find more buildings like this because clearly there's a market for these convenience stores that will rent these places, and that's value that wasn't even considered. You can rent out spaces in the basement, right? So, we have this large basement and I'm splitting it up and I was going to rent it out individually to tenants, but now the convenience store guys, like I'll rent the whole basement, right? So there's other things you can do to add value to your building. And I've found companies that will actually put washer dryers in for you and they'll service them and they'll collect and they'll just give you a percentage of the income. So you don't have to deal with it. So it's like another easy plug and play thing that that's now income coming into your building. And we're going to get cap rates and stuff, but it all adds to your value, right? And there are massive and then there are massive tax advantages for buying apartment buildings, just like there are for regular homes. But apartment buildings are more expensive and like you could depreciate, and do forced depreciation and all that stuff with apartment buildings, right? So the cons of buying apartment buildings. Number one, it's harder to diversify your market exposure and to buy a lot of them due to costs. They're expensive, right? Turnover rates and operating costs tend to be significantly higher. Taxes are higher, insurance is higher, utilities are higher. You're constantly turning over units, so your expenses are going to be higher. Whereas with a single family, if you have a tenant for a year and a half, 2 years, you're only doing one turnover every couple of years. With the multifamily, you're doing a couple of turnovers every year, right? The cost of the asset is usually more expensive, which requires a higher down payment. And 5+ units are financed with commercial loans, which means your interest rates typically aren't locked in for the first 5, or typically are locked in for the first 5 to 10 years, but then instead of a 30-year loan that you get on most residential properties. So with commercial loans, commercial lenders, they're doing ARMs on these properties. They're 3-1, 5-1, 7-1, 10-1 ARMs, meaning they're locked in for that first set of numbers. And then after that, the rate can change every year if you don't refinance. They want you to refinance, right? Commercial lenders want you to continue to refinance. So what I'm seeing is a lot of people that bought buildings in 2020, 2021, 2022 early, when the rates were still 4%, didn't factor for what happens when the rates are 8%, right? And a lot of them that had these 3-1 loans and these 5-1 loans are starting to think, man, at 8%, this building doesn't work. At 4%, it works, sure. But when the rate doubles, my profit's cut in half, and my profit was already tough to begin with. So, and they haven't accelerated the value quickly enough in terms of raising the rents. Sure.
The biggest thing that I gather from people who were getting these type of loans, it was the rate at which the interest rates rose.
Yeah.
Like no one, like we've seen interest rates higher than this, but the speed at which it happened.
Yep.
Because a lot of times we're looking at these properties, you're factoring for like a 5-year hold,
Yeah.
buying 3, and no one could have predicted like these interest rates would shoot up so fast.
Correct. Right. Yeah, and that's the other thing. No one thought. Look, it's always the government's fault, right? Like they shouldn't have kept the rates at 3% for 2 years. Like that was a mistake, but we pay for it, so.
And they took floating rate debts in order to get those prime, in those prime markets, you had to take the floating rate debt.
Yeah.
And that's where they got screwed. And
Yep.
they're playing like, I'm sorry for my language. And they were playing like hot potato for years,
Yeah.
like getting in and not getting out, but then they shot out so fast.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I out of our office, there's a small fund I'm not a part of, but I talk to them all the time, and he's telling me a lot of what they're getting, these default loans, are people that, especially in Philly, these developers that were buying these blocks and putting 13-unit condos on them or apartment buildings, and the rates shot up on them. They can't afford the payments. They can't afford holding it. So now these $4 million loans are being sold for $2 million to funds, and then they're trying to get $3 million for the property on the back end. It's scary when you take on that much risk, and you don't account for worst case scenario, right? So 2 to 4 units, multifamily is different than 5 and above. When you're in the sub 5 unit category, you're still considered residential in most cases, unless there is a commercial space in it or it's zoned commercially. But for the most part, it's residential. These are great ways to learn the game while taking advantage of the residential 30-year loans. So the plus side of these is you can get 30-year loans on them. The other plus side is you can get an FHA loan to buy a 4-unit building, right? And in Philly, I think 4-unit FHA loans go up to like 900,000 or something. So you can get a 3.5% down loan on a 900K building in our area, and get a 6% seller's assist, take advantage of some grants. Most grants don't do more than 2 units, but still, and get a pretty nice building for a little out of pocket. So if you're looking to be a first-time investor with little money in the game, do a house hack per se, you go get an FHA loan. Now, the qualification for FHA loan is that you just can't have another FHA loan. And you also have to prove that it's going to be your primary residence. So if you own a $600,000 house in the suburbs and you tell the bank you're going to buy a 4-unit in Philly, they're going to be like, no, like, what are you talking? The underwriter is going to catch you on that. So it has to be explainable. But if you can get in that way, and if I were to start over, that would have been the first thing I did was exercise an FHA loan and go buy me a 4-unit and live in one of the units, right? Because then I could have bought, after that, you can go buy a duplex with a 5% down conventional loan and get a 3% seller's assist. So like you could buy 6 units with, 5% of the total cost of those 6 units in, a couple of years, and then buy your regular house to live in, and then start investing in real estate with the bigger down payments. So if you have this opportunity, take advantage of it. And I do get a lot of the times I get the question like, well, what if the bank finds out you don't plan on living there forever? Well, who's checking? Like what bank is sending someone out to go knock on the door and make sure the owner is there forever? No one. All they care about is that you're paying the mortgage, right?
Don't you just have to sign up for 1 year on that or 2 years?
I think, yeah. And here's the other thing, like life changes, right? So if you buy a 4-unit and 2 months later, your wife gets pregnant and you want to buy a single, like what's the bank going to come say, no, you can't do that? Like they can't really call you on it, so unless you're blatantly trying to do this like over and over and over again, sure. But I've never heard of a bank like, flag someone for doing the house hack.
Now, explain to me, so like I was thinking about that's what I was thinking about doing this. So how does like it renews like every year? You can do another FHA, or how does that work?
No. What's that?
That's what I did. So like I started with an FHA house. I bought it, and the only caveat that they said was if I want to buy another house, I have to at least be in that FHA property for a year.
But you had to refinance out of the FHA. Yes.
Yeah, two FHAs. Right?
Yes.
Okay, refinance out.
Yes. Yeah. So the only rule with FHA is you can only have one at a time.
Okay.
Right. So if you buy it as a 4-unit and you live there for a year or two, you refi it to a conventional loan, then you can go do another FHA loan.
When you refi, you still get that full refi out, like
you should. You should. Now, a great play you can do is there's what's called an FHA 203K. It's a renovation mortgage. So you can find a fixer upper, if you get a good enough deal, 4-unit or whatever. It could be a single family too. This pertains to all regular FHAs. And you find it, you use the FHA loan to purchase it, and they will finance in the renovation costs if you don't already have an FHA loan, right? If you find a good enough deal that hey, I'm buying it for 100 or 400, I'm putting 100 into it, and I think this thing's gonna be worth 7 when I'm done with it, and then you go to a bank. Now you have to be there for a year because with conventional loans, there's a seasoning period. So you're there, you made 12 payments. You can go to a bank and say, this thing's worth 700 now. I'm living here. I want to do a cash out refi and pay off my first. You could make money on it, right? So there's that too. You could do that. But as long as the value's there when you refi, that the bank will cover it conventional. So 5 units plus, the downside is generally you need 20 to 25% to purchase these. Not in all cases. There are banks that will do fix and flip loans on multi-unit buildings. And a lot of those banks, if you have a relationship with them, will do, 10% down on the purchase, 100% on the renovations. So you don't necessarily have to have 20% down. But yeah. So what you have to realize is, your real estate asset is a business. Your job is to create value in that business by minimizing expenses, fixing it up, and increasing rents. You have to look at it as a business always, right? Let's go, man. So I'm going to power through, finish up mine. You could jump on. Are you good with that? Yeah, cool. All right. So numbers to understand. The net income of your asset drives the value of the property. Your job as an operator is to increase your net income and decrease your expenses. It's just like any business, right? What's your profit margin? Try to make that bigger, every year. How to calculate capitalization rate. So not all lenders, but a lot of lenders use what's called a cap rate to evaluate your building, right? They do look at price per unit in a lot of areas, especially if there's not a lot of history to look at. But it's a good number for you to base. I tell people, like, if the cap rate's kind of like a sniff test, is this building worth evaluating further, right? Am I looking into what rents could be after the fact? Am I really going to dig into the expense? Am I going to start really underwriting it? So I use the cap rate based on what they're providing me to figure out if we're even in the ballpark, right? And you don't even have to get that crazy. Like some areas, I know I don't want to spend more than like 35,000 a unit. So the price is double that. All right, I'm not even going to look at the building, right? There's easier ways to do it, but the cap rate's one way, right? How do you calculate this? So gross income, 40,000 a year. Calculate your net income. Your net income is gross income minus taxes, maintenance, insurance. That's your net income. This is a really simplified version of that. If you see some of these sheets, there's way more to look at, especially in these big buildings, but you get the idea. Net income over purchase price is your cap rate. So that's how you come up with your cap rate. Cap rates and income levels. So, property sold for 400,000 at an 8% cap rate. You could figure out where the income came from on that property by getting 8% of that, right? But again, it's not the reason you don't look at just cap rate is because it's a bit misleading. It doesn't show what you actually walk away with because you haven't factored your mortgage payment yet, right? Cap rate is before the mortgage payment. So in a property like this, your gross income's 9,000 a year, your property management's 900, maintenance, taxes, insurance, you're walking away with 6,290 net income. That over the $40,000 purchase price is a 15, or the 40,000 you put in to purchase it is a 15.7 cap rate before the mortgage is paid. So you could see this great cap rate of 12%, but then you calculate what the mortgage payment on it is, and if it's 12%, but the building's $1 million, you're looking at a $9,000 mortgage payment. Well, you're losing money, right? So don't just look at the cap rate. Cap rates and income levels. So use cap rates to justify the income level of the investment property. If you know the cap rates of the area, you can figure out what type of income level it should be. Think of cap rate as like a risk management. The riskier the area, the higher cap rate you want it to be, right? So if you're buying a building in, Hollywood, you're okay with taking a 4 cap on it because it's going to keep appreciating, right? Or appreciating. If you're buying a building, I hate to always do this, but I'm always picking on Chester. If you're buying a building in Chester, I want a 15% cap rate. I want something that's going to be worth it to me, right? So, for example, if we bought a property for $400,000 in an area where most similar properties have been at an 8% cap rate, we find our recommended income level by multiplying 400,000 by 8%, gives you 32,000. This represents the amount of net income the property would need to generate per year to get an 8% cap rate. However, keep in mind that you cannot set rental rates based on the cap rate. They must be based on market rates, and consider this rental would compare to other rentals in the area. So again, if you're thinking about, I'm buying this as an 8 cap, but I'm going to go in and make it a 12 cap, you're not just going to be able to raise the rents to do that. You have to make sure that it's not already at market rents, because it might already be in market rents, and then raising the rents is going to get really hard, right? So the good thing about cap rates is it gives you an idea of what you should be looking for in the area you're looking. And generally, if you're investing in an area, you've done enough homework that you know what the cap rate should be, what your price per unit should look like, what the general rents are. So running numbers over and over again, like you said, spreadsheets are super boring, and I hate them. They're the last thing I do. When my kids go to bed, I'll look at the spreadsheets for an hour and just like try not to fall asleep. I don't enjoy them, but they're required, right?
You can probably attribute this too. Like what I've seen with cap rates is that it's usually a lot of these guys will invest big money to the smaller cap rates, and then they'll do like 1031s into higher cap rates, because you usually get a higher payout per dollar in higher cap rates versus lower cap rates, right?
There's more volatility. There's more volatility, which means it's more upside. So if you have a 1031, you're looking for the upside. If someone's looking for wealth preservation, they're going to put yourself in a 3 or 4 cap because it's constant money. It's safe. That's a Manhattan or
right.
2% cap rate there.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I feel like investing in real estate is kind of you start off kind of safe, but then you start to get into the super risky stuff to build your equity and net flow. And then as you have that, you then start to roll it into safer assets. And that's kind of like a thing I see, and that's how I felt like my business has gone. I'm in that point where I'm getting riskier because I want to increase cash flow and equity to then start coming back to more to safer assets. I don't know if everyone takes that path, but I think it's where you start, right? Because if you start off with go safe assets, you will, Yeah, exactly.
The price of entry is a lot lower.
Yeah. So let me wrap up my So you know what? I'm gonna stop here because I want you to do your thing. Did you have anything you brought, or are you just gonna check?
I want to go off of yours. I looked at yours. I can go off of there. I was
Cool.
things I want to talk about cap rate though.
Cool. Well, actually, if you don't mind coming here, because everyone on the Zoom could hear you better here. That's cool.
So, there's a couple things on the cap rate, and why it is very subjective, but also very damn important, especially when you're getting financing and also refining out of a property. I've done them all through the I've done it in the Sun Belt, Pennsylvania. I'm actually doing a new one here on Monday in Birmingham, Alabama. It's going to be on the 9 unit and the 56 unit in Birmingham, Alabama. One of the most important things about that cap rate, it is subjective, and you should not only talk to the broker and do your own calculation, but you should also be talking to the bank where you're doing the financing at or your refi and submit your underwriting to them as well. You're going to have to do it anyway, submit your underwriting, but you want to see what their cap rate is, because that's going to be really the determining factor. The broker, they're going to give you, especially in multifamily, they'll give you something called an OM, which is an offering memorandum. Really, that is a big marketing guide. It's going to have the best pictures, the best everything in there. But you really want to check right there on that cap rate. For instance, I have a good bank in Doylestown, CNN Bank. It's a very good bank out there. If anybody hasn't, patronized them, they're good. They're very investor friendly. They will actually let you refi out pre-leases. You don't have to be seasoned. So you're going to show the pre-leases after you have something done.
What are they called?
CNN Bank in Doylestown.
Doylestown?
Yeah, I can give you a contact
Okay,
for
yeah,
the head
sure.
broker there.
And do they do just Pennsylvania, or are they all?
They're just do Pennsylvania. Yeah. So that'd be Pennsylvania. Anything else outside of it, I'll go to community banks or I'll use Berkadia. I'll give you that information either. Thomas Rodriguez out of Colorado. He will give me a matrix of every bank that fits the portfolio of my property and was like, hey, they'll lend on this. This could be a small Fannie Mae loan, or this is the community bank loan. This is interest only. So I'll have about 11 options. And I'm like, all right, let me choose which one I was doing. Previously, I was going 3-2-1 pay down. So I was taking 5 years, 3-2-1 pay down based off of presidential election, and knowing that rates have historically lowered during the presidential election. We've seen the Feds cut. We haven't really seen it in the marketplace just of yet, but I'm still confident that history doesn't repeat it always repeats itself. So
Sure.
I'm confident that it's going to come and that those rates will drop. And that's why I was doing the 3-2-1 pay downs during that time.
So regarding rates, I'm not political, whatever, I don't care. But I've heard that part of the new plan for the Republican Party coming in is to for the government oversight on Fannie and Freddie to be pushed back to the private sides, right? And they're saying because of that, it should drive competition and drive rates down. Do you think that's a good call? I think that's what that's actually going to happen.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I have bias with it, so yeah, I believe it does. I believe it does.
So rates, you think rates are come down significantly?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it will be. And then if you have things that you wanted to sell, then I would say sell them when the rates go down and get into something bigger.
Right.
And let me that asterisk there. You don't have to go bigger, but it is benefits to it. I started, back in 2009 doing real estate. My background is in biology. I have a master's in biochemical engineering. So I was working with GSK for a number of years. I've acquired over 107 properties by 2016, where I went full time. And then I was like, okay. But even now, I thought I had it. I thought I had to leave. I thought I had to be vertically integrated. But what I do now with apartment buildings is that's really asset management. So I'm just having meetings with the different property managers, and I could have done that and still, I don't know if I still would have worked, but I do miss my health insurance. Right. Health insurance is pricey as hell. Yes, I do miss my benefits. I was like, I might have to marry a Starbucks barista or something right there. I don't know, something there. Yeah, something, man. It's ridiculous. But the key point of that is being a good operator. When I see folks that are like, "Oh, I had this problem," like it's really sometimes on how you purchase the property, your underwriting of the residential property, and maybe you were just a shitty operator. And then if you take that to the large scale,
you're probably going to be shitty there as well. So it's always good to be a good soldier first, learn the ins and outs and for moving up. And I always tell people, like, Fannie has a great product right now where you can do, it's a portfolio, it's up to 4 units, 5% down, doesn't have to be owner occupied. You can do it up to 10 times. This has to be in your name, can't be in the LLC. But that Fannie portfolio is beautiful. I think, that's a quick way to get into properties at a low cost, not putting 20-25% down. I think that's beautiful. But multifamily, why I love that part of it is just the reason that we kind of discussed cap rates. And I'm going to talk about one, the refi that we have, but it's an upcoming property, a 9-unit. I found a 9-unit off market. We're getting the building for $205,000. All right. We're going to go ahead, $205,000. Mom and pop, they had their P&L sheets on paper. It's like this loose notes. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to put $20,000 in each unit there. So about $180,000 of rehab. And so I don't have a blackboard, but right now on the low end, I'm expecting this building to come in at least $990,000. On the high end, we're going to come in at 1.1. And so when you look at that play, or why multifamily is so important, is that they only have 3 units occupied right now. Those 3 units occupied, I don't have nothing to write down with, but if you want to pick out a calculator, I can do it in my head, but sure. I would always like them very visual, like to show people. So right now, their current rents are at $500, and they're a mix of 2 1-bedrooms, and the rest are 7 2-bedrooms.
A spreadsheet probably.
All right.
Visual help.
And what I'm going to do now is that on the low end, I'm just going to say, guess what? My 1-beds are going to $850 a unit, and my 2-bedrooms are going to $950 a unit. So I'm just going to bring out the trusty calculator here.
What area is it in?
Birmingham, Alabama. Yep. So I'm going to do 850 times 2, that's 1,700 plus 950 times 7. Total is $8,350 per month right here. So one of the beautiful things about multifamily real estate is that it's the secret sauce is that you can add value of the building without, you don't have to go in and do a whole reposition, meaning going down to the guts. You can add things such as valet trash. You can do parking spots. For this instance, I'm going to be doing parking spots here. So I know I kind of lucked out that we have 5 parking spots. It's a 9-unit building. So the thing is that most people are like, I don't want to pay for parking. So in the business plan that I have right here,
you can use this sheet if you want and like plug in numbers. You could do it on the computer probably.
And so what I'm going to do here is that I'm gonna talk and skip at the same time. What we're going to do is that we're going to, each new resident, we're going to say, hey, you have your first 60 days are free for your parking right in front of your door right now. After that 60 days, it's going to be $50. The key is that right now you're going to create that rhythm of always parking in front of the car. And guess what? I guarantee you, after that 60 days, they're going to want to pay for that parking right now. And so that is one of the keys that you have. And if I go ahead and just show you that value right now. So you have 5 times 50, it's going to be $250 a month added. Times 12 is $3,000. The secret sauce is that we'll divide this into a cap rate. We'll just say it's a 9 cap there. So divide $3,000 into 0.9. We increased $33,000 worth of value in the building, and all we did was offer something in the parking space. The second thing that we'll always do to increase value is that we have a porter. I'm paying the porter as far as my property management to make sure trash and everything is cleaned up. That's another thing that's really important about culture of buildings. I always want to make sure I do that. I started that here in North Philadelphia. Some of the roughest areas, I would just pay a porter. Anytime somebody put trash there, clean it up. I want somebody there every day of the week, clean it up. Sure enough, people would understand, oh, let me start putting things in the trash. I start taking the bars off of my windows and things of that nature, because what I notice is that if you treat people a certain way, they act a certain way. And it took time to acclimate but it worked. And so I take that same business plan down there. I keep a porter there and I have them clean up the trash, things like that. The next thing you do is valet trash. Valet trash is only $15 because it's a small building they can walk. You'd be surprised how many times people just want to put the trash outside their door and don't want to walk right there to the corner. And we charge $15. I'm guaranteeing I'll at least get 50% of those units to pay that $15, which would be just another value add about probably $25,000, $15,000, $20,000 worth of value into that building. And we didn't do nothing because it's already in his property management salary that we have. And that's really the beauty of real estate when you're getting creative. A lot of things we like to do, and this, I'm talking about it because I'm buying this building Monday, is that there's washer and dryer connections. What I do is that we have them rent the washer and dryers from us. So now we're renting the washer and dryers for us for $35 a month or $50 a month. I have to look at it. So we're buying them on a plan from Home Depot, and then the difference from that, we're renting to them. So we just make that profit and always. So we'll be whole maybe like 18 months, 2 years, but then it's still profit, but our profit margin is going to increase after that, you know? So those are just some of the things that you can do within multifamily, which I think is, it's really beautiful as far as ease of use and really asset management of the class.
Yeah, I was telling them when I came in, I found a company because I didn't want to spend money buying coin operated washer dryers. So I found a company that actually would put them in there for you. It's their machine, they service it, they come collect the money, but then they split the profit with you. So for me, I had no capital investment, and I'm getting income from it that I can then add to my sheet. And if your scale is different because you're working with probably a lot more capital. So yeah, but either side is a good idea, you know.
Well, I think it's the entry point, and that's why I'm like, I don't want people to get scared of the cap rates because the cap rates may have a rougher area because the higher the cap rate, the rougher the area. But you have a lot more, normally you have a lot more equity and a value add and opportunistic area to gain. So I know a gentleman in Texas, his name is Bruce Frazier, and he's actually really good on LinkedIn, but very, very knowledgeable. That's all he does in Texas is he wants the gang infiltrated affiliated complexes, and he wants to take them over because nobody wants that headache. And he comes in there with higher security and turns these places around, but he's getting them on pennies on the dollar. So once he turns it around, his equity in the money is this, he's killing it that way. But he's not scared of that type of thing. So it also depends on your investors within multifamily. How are you raising your capital? Are you using a fund? Are you using a syndication? Are you doing a 1031 exchange? Multifamily has a lot of avenues to go through. And I use each one of those things as a tool. Some things require a syndication to get it done. Some things require a fund. Some things require a 1031, or you can just maybe a private investors. I've used literally, besides the fund, which we're about to do something within like the end of the year, I've used all of those items or tools to acquire multifamily real estate, and they each have their benefits. I've used a lot of hard money lenders and kind of say, hey, you guys are getting raped by taxes because you don't have nothing to tax depreciation. I can still give you want it 12%, I'll give you 14%. I can I'll give you 2 more percent, 14% and tax depreciation if you give me everything that we have here, and I'm going to show you the underwriting. And guess what? I'll still be out in 18 months. So I'll even sweeten that deal for you. And you get to write that off because now I'm bringing you in as an LP, as a limited partner. So now you can write those taxes off. So now you're getting 2 points more than you wanted. I don't care that they wanted more percent. As long as the deal makes sense where I can refinance and keep the property whole myself and return their capital. And then I'll probably give them, what I do is normally give like a lifetime equity and say, hey, here's 3% annually or quarterly just because you put me in this position. Boom. That's what I'll do. I don't mind if you want 16%, fine. As long as it makes sense on the back end for me, that's all that matters to me, whatever. Because I never want to get into like flipping apartment buildings unless it's getting to something bigger there.
Right.
So, but that's the real beauty of each one of those, and they all have their benefits. The syndications or fund, you'll have different classifications. You'll have your 506B. If you want a little acronym, B is for buds. So, that means there has to be people of acquaintances that you know. So when you have a 506B raise, that means you can raise family and friends or people that you know, and you're limited to up to like 35 of these individuals to raise capital to actually purchase a property. And then you have 506C, which I always kind of call it solicitation. So anytime you'll probably see it if you're on social media, because I'm saying it now, you'll probably scroll up and see somebody offering, hey, I got this 22% return on the thing. You're like, how the hell he's just talking about this? Because Big Brother's always listening.
Yeah.
So you'll
right there.
Yeah. So you're going to have it. It's going to be on there.
Right.
And so 506Cs are, guess what, solicitation. Most of the time, sometimes it can be for unaccredited investors. Unaccredited investors are for individuals that are earning under $250,000 a year. Accredited investors are earning over that and have a net worth of $1 million. You also have to have it, a document notified by a CPA that's stamped before you can collect their money that they are an accredited or savvy investor. They need to have at least, it was 2 years, I think it changed, maybe 3 years of tax returns that they've earned this amount of money. But it is a really, I always encourage friends and family, like if you have a group that you're here, I'm like, why don't y'all just bundle together and you don't have to go and buy 156 unit. You can go ahead, singles and doubles will get you to the Hall of Fame just as quickly as home runs. It's about really having a strategic, methodical plan for the course that you have. And besides that, if you don't have a net worth of, that type of building, a $24 million building, you're going to need somebody called a KP, which is a key principal or a sponsor. And that's going to be a person that's going to sign on the loan for you. I've signed on loans for people. I've had to get loans to sign on for people as well. Hey, can you sign on for this? Because not only do they want to see that you have the net worth of that, the banks, depending on where you're at, they want to see that you have 10 to 20% liquid of that amount sitting in the account, just sitting there post-closing. They just want it just sitting there, just doing nothing. They're like, oh, sometimes they want it in their bank, which sucks as well. They want it moved into their bank, depending on who you're dealing with. They want to see that there post-closing in itself there. But cap rates are very important, but also recognizing getting, T12s, knowing how to break down a T12. You have a great spreadsheet right here. I love spreadsheets, man. Like I love underwriting. Yeah. So that's like my thing. I have a personalized one that does like waterfalls and jumbo structures, but it's fun to me to actually put a deal together and not fall in love with it. So I always tell them I never fall in love with it because you can make the math project what your emotions are saying or thinking. So never fall in love with the deal. I always fall in love with like, guess what? What am I doing for my returns on my investors? Because the most important thing you have is your name.
Right.
It's so important that you keep your name, like, guess what? I call it, yes, he's been dealing with me for 8 years and always delivered on that, and the culture. So whether you're looking to raise money, I would say create a culture. Always invite our investors to the properties, to themselves, to have cookouts or to tours. I always have a end of the year celebration where we're just getting to know, like, hey, were your kids going to college now? You may be in a different constraint. Would you like a buyout because your kids are going to college? Maybe we can get somebody else to buy you out because guess what? You want to free up some of that capital that you placed in there for your kid. That's really important. It goes a long damn way that you're caring about the person and not the dollar sign. So I'm always telling people like, hey, make sure that you don't treat people like a dollar sign and that guess what? You treat them as a human,
Our team, my real estate team, we have our client event on Friday. 150 of our clients are coming right here. I have it. And food, drinks, gifts, like
yep.
I appreciate that, man. They're the reason I'm working.
That is, it's needed, man. It's needed. I think we're going to do I'll probably be putting it out there too. I'm just going to do it like a tailgate for maybe, I think the what is the game? It's not in Jacksonville. That passed already.
Pittsburgh.
It's coming up in December 3rd. I think December 3rd or 5th game. I forgot who they're playing.
I think it might be Pittsburgh,
Yeah. So I think I'm having a tailgate for there. And this is going to be, no upsell. I hate upsells anyway. So as I told you, I was like, I hate upsells. Like, I just like to get information. Just come, hang out, watch the game, drink, learn some stuff right there. That's what it's about. Because even when I started, all the information I gained was always given to me.
Yeah.
For, like, literally get like the best information was just given to me from someone just trying to help me. And so I always try to pay that back and pay that forward to anyone there.
Yeah.
Some of the other things that you want to look at besides cap rate, IRRs, cash on cash return, equity multiples. You'll see a lot of people advertising, hey, I'm giving a 2x, 3x equity multiple. Realistically, people are sometimes,
What does that mean, an equity multiple?
Equity multiple is really what's your, so we'll go back with IRR. IRR is the internal rate of return. So that means if you placed $100,000 invested into a property and you're a limited partner, that means what does your money earn the life of the deal? So most deals are about 5 to 7 years, depending if it's a syndication or a fund, you keep it in there. What did it earn through that whole duration? The ARR is your annual. So the IRR just calculates what your money earned and you divide it and it'd be like, hey, you earned 2 times your money or 1.8. That's what the equity multiple means. Then cash on cash is like, what are you earning? Did you offer anyone a pref on it? Which gets to get a little bit more intricate. The pref means, guess what? This is what's paid out to your investors before any other distributions are made, including your technically your senior debt is always first, and then it's your pref to your investors, and then you break down the cash flow to everybody and itself. Let me see if you have something like that on here. You have. Nah, it's all right. Because you have debt service, DCRs, which is really important as well. I had a property, it's kind of funny. There's a property in San Antonio that I was trying to get, and I would kind of keep it into the same credit union, and they wanted the DSCR to be a 1.4. And I was like, it's not performing at 1.4 now. Like, what do you mean? Like, it's in your portfolio, it's not performing at that. It was like performing at like 0.8. And I'm like, but that's ridiculous that you wanted it at 1.4. Like, there's no way that this deal would happen. And it didn't. It ended up going into like foreclosure later on. So it's like sometimes you have to be mindful of that on the exit. But I think most of the time it's more, guess what, cash flow, and make sure you're not going into deficit. Do you have floating rates? A lot of people got in trouble with floating rates, the floating debt. A lot of people just didn't expect the rates to keep going up and up and up, and they had the floating rate, and that really hurt a lot of
the DSCR a little bit more, because I know a lot of banks look at that as well as your cap rate to evaluate the deal. So break down for everyone that doesn't know what that is.
Oh, yeah. So the debt service coverage ratio is at the percent of saying, guess what? After all your expenses and your income, what is that? I guess the tipping point that, yes, what you will be able to satisfy that loan. For most products in residential, they always want at least a 1.2. I've seen in the commercial side, this mentioned at 1.4, but the most time it's like 1.25. That's what I'm saying that they want to see it at. Over the time they want, and I'll show it. This is a Mac? Or this is a Mac computer?
Yeah.
All right, yeah. Let me you have your thing connected to it.
You can connect.
Okay, yeah. I'll show you like what they'll look at. I just want to pull up one of my underwriting.
Yeah, sure.
They'll I'm gonna show you really quick what one of the things that they'll look at.
over at Michael Blanc?
No,
Oh,
no. Michael Block right there has one, but his is kind of basic. So, but I do go out 10 years or more on it. But I'm also, why am I going out 10 years or more
It makes my
on the spreadsheet?
you know.
Is that we want to make sure that as one, we want to look at the increases in rents, but also the rent escalator and expense escalator. You just want to make sure you're not outpacing, because at some point you're going to hit a rent ceiling while your expenses are still going to go up at some point, whatever, unless you're constantly going back and be like, hey, let me dispute this. You're going to hit a ceiling on your rents. And so we're always looking past that first year or even that second year, depending on the size of this building. This is a quick building that I was underwriting. This is a 272 unit. So this is a 272 unit building in Houston that it's a live deal. But the difference from this is that I'll do like equity shares and compound hurdles. I'm not going to get too in the weeds here, but like prefs and hurdles, and then the waterfall structures and how you can structure a deal and how like your classes will get. But you want to just make sure in your P&L that you're looking out and saying, guess what? All right, I'm not being too aggressive on my rents. My business plan versus when my leases are expiring, guess what? Can I turn those folks over to the new buildings, or am I accounting that, guess what? Their lease is up in end of November, December 1st. Did they leave? Oh, they didn't leave. I was expecting them to leave. They didn't leave. Now they're postponing it. Now what am I going to do? You have to account for all of those things that can happen, especially in a big building like this, when you're saying, guess what? Oh, their rents right now that they're getting, this is a perfect example. These are the rents that we're saying they're getting right now. They're getting, we're only going to raise them $1.20, but these rents that they have right now, and we've said, guess what? We want to raise it from an average of $920 to $1,014. Can we actually achieve that within that time frame and still make sure we're paying the prefs, the crew pref, any of that to our investors? And that's when we're really executing the business plan. And then your underwriters will also look at that like, this is a little bit aggressive. I don't think like you can do that within 1 year or not. So I'm always looking at that. Like I said, I have like 1,000 tabs, like debt stacks, second mortgages, like these are the rent terms. So like if I'm actually going to, they accept the LOI, I won't physically do it anymore, but I'll have one of the VAs actually go ahead and put all the units in here, and we're going to be like, all right, what are the rent terms per what month? How long is it going to take us to actually go through each of the units every week? When can we get it on? When can the premium actually kick in? Oh, all right, they've been paying rent on time. Do we really want to, rock the boat? Maybe we can say, guess what? We're going to update some fixtures in here and raise that rent. Would you enjoy that? Yes. Boom, great. All right. That means now we just postpone doing that rental unit to another time from that CapEx. But that's like the savviness that you have to have when executing the business plan. And it goes, I think I don't know why I like to underwrite, because it takes a long time to get a deal done. I literally underwrite probably like 5 to 6 deals a day. And then that's not even what the team sends me, because I have 3 people under me that are like napkin underwriting things. So, and that's actually something good I can talk to you guys about, napkin underwriting. So, but for getting to this point, when you're actually looking at all these numbers, how do you know you should take a deep dive into a napkin underwriting? So my napkin underwriting is a little bit different, but I take the number of units, I times it times only the occupied units, none of the vacant, the occupied units times right now. Actually, let me pull this up. I think I have it here. It'll be better.
So you're saying napkin?
Napkin.
Napkin.
Yeah, I'll pull it up for you.
Yeah, you're just.
Because it's easier when you have a visual. I'll pull one up.
This is like
1,000 times higher level than I think I'm supposed to get.
It's not as bad as you think it is.
Yeah, no, I know,
Yeah.
like, I get it, but
It's
you
just
know,
a number,
when
it's
you're
like-
underwriting like a 10-unit building, I don't even get this deep into it, you know, I would definitely need to hire someone for that, you know, it's like.
It's funny, I actually have the same exact sheet that you have, that.
Yeah.
Underwriting sheet, I have the
I
exact.
think I
same.
got it on TikTok or something.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like this like guy, yeah, send me $10 and you can download my sheet. I'm like, this sheet looks good. You know? Because the one I had was like the most basic looking. I made it, you know, like this thing is, you know.
No, why is it not pulling up? Are you opening something? No, I don't want that one. That's an easy one. That's actually come from the Michael Blanc one.
We use Michael Bond, but we modified it.
Yeah, I had one before and I modified with a napkin, but the one right there, I realized that
Question, what is the Michael Blanc underwriting? What is that specifically?
He's a apartment building guy.
Okay.
Like he's a podcast actually.
Gotcha.
I think it's called the Michael Blanc podcast or something.
Michael Blanc?
Michael Blanc, yeah.
Michael, yeah.
yeah.
BLANC?
BLANC.
Yeah.
I think it's like.
He'll come up on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
Essentially, it's good. He was a software guy, sold this in a Pizza Hut restaurant, sold it, put it in investments. Now he's raising capital. I get text messages now. He's looking for passive investors to raise capital for him as well, which is also a good way to get in. But if you can raise capital, because I started off that way as well, raising capital for another general partner to get in there. And I realized the amount of capital that I raised, we went into a much bigger unit, but I didn't have control the way I wanted to. And so I would have preferred to put that capital in something smaller that we could have signed on. That was my preference. If I'm looking back, 5 years ago, I'm like, that's the move I would have made. Because like, I just don't like flipping. I don't like flipping houses.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like flipping apartment buildings. I'm like, oh, we got to get out of here. Like, no, I want to keep it. But this is the napkin underwriting. So we'll take the units, multiply that times the average rent of only the occupied units, times 12 months, times occupancy. The reason why I'm always using 88% or 90% that's another thing is that if you go, a lot of banks now, if you go below 80%, they're going to tell you to get bridge debt. Definitely anything below 70%, they're going to be like, hey, you're going to need a bridge debt. They're not going to give you traditional debt within that. Other income, 1.5%, and then expense ratio times 50%. That equals your net operating income. And then you can divide it by your cap rates. So I'll keep these are always formulated. So we have cap rates from 5 to 10. Wherever that is within that range, if it's within like that 10 to 15 or 10 to 20% range, like, hey, we're close to that, we'll go ahead and say we'll send it over for further examination. But we get so much deal flow, we have to like tighten it up right now, especially because we hired somebody else that's vertically integrated within our company, and that's all he does all day is he has eight folks, $3 a piece, and they're just shooting out all day long looking for mom and pop apartment buildings. That's all they do. So yeah, that's all, and that's all they do. They just call, and that's his full-time job. We pay him very well for that and give him equity into the buildings. Right. But that has helped significantly on the value of the properties that we're getting and the prices that we've been getting in the buildings lately. The most recent building in July was 148 unit in Cypress, Texas, a suburb of Houston. That was the same owner for the past 27 years. Yeah. Like we got that at a great price. Right. But that's the benefit of things going direct to seller. Especially a lot of these kids don't want the business. That's you'll see that a lot. That and farmland and oil rights, which is something else I'm gonna dive into. A lot of kids don't want the farms. They don't want the mineral rights. They just went to school and don't want nothing to do with it. But I do. Yeah. So I'll go ahead. You don't want what mom and dad work so hard to send you to school for. Guess who wants it? Yeah. Me. So I'm going to Oklahoma and Kansas for those things. for that reason. But that's a quick way to napkin underwrite and actually see like, hey, is this still going to make sense? And should we go ahead and further look into one, taxes? I don't really bother my insurance broker too much. We pretty much have a range of based off of building type and year it was built, and like, oh, it's going to come in between here because we don't want to bother them unless we know we're actually closing on it.
Right.
And then also we have our watering holes, so I know where I'm shopping at. So for the most part, I can always, I've received operate like OMs when the brokers put my building that I own with the wrong comp, and I'm like, no, it's not even the same area.
Right.
And they're like, well, how do you know? I'm like, well, I'm this guy. You actually put my name in there.
Right.
Like, you need my company, you put my name in there. And I was like, that's wrong right there. So knowing that, having that water hole makes things a lot easier as well to say, guess what? All right, this is where I can move and shop at.
Got it. So why do you invest in the middle of the country versus here?
Sunbelt, our best in red states.
Yeah.
I got burnt by Philadelphia County.
Yeah.
And I told you I had over 107 units. I had all traditional renters. And so I had no subsidies, which I changed that strategy as well. And when the government told them they did not have to pay, I doggy paddled through that shit.
Yeah.
And so it's one of the things now I use as a metric that I had no foreclosures. I made sure it happened. Did what I had to do. I took consulting jobs. Lucky I had degrees, and I made sure those mortgage payments were paid. But I said, they won't fool me again with that. So I went down to Sunbelts, Texas. And I was just, I'm very good at knowing what are the landlord rights in the counties and municipalities that I invest in now.
Right.
And if they are tenant friendly, it's a no for me.
Yeah.
It is a no for me. So that's how I ended up there.
No, I was in eviction court on Monday.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is rough. Like I always tell people, I have new construction apartment buildings that I'm building in Philadelphia. Just because I had land, I need to do something with it. So I am building them. But any of my other stuff and the market changes, and what it does, oh yeah, I'm selling and I'm going somewhere else where I'm appreciated.
Right.
Yeah. The same way, I'm going somewhere else where I'm appreciated. That's it.
Yeah, that tenant I had to evict. I cut off. I didn't take any rent from her during COVID because she was a waitress. I covered the mortgage, and when I told her I was selling the building, she stopped paying rent. So for 6 months, it took me to get her out.
It's a really.
Yeah,
it's a crazy. I will go political, but we'll keep it on the real estate side. But it's crazy what goes on out here.
But like, it's just a Philadelphia thing, though, because I have stuff other places, Carver County, Pittsburgh, and it's better.
Yeah,
way better.
Yeah. I mean, in Texas, it's really like I think it took us a day or 2 days to get in front of a judge.
Yeah.
It was very, very quick. The only thing that's different down there is that if you're military, then they're like, all right, there's special circumstances because you have to give an affidavit that they haven't served in any of the armed forces. If they had, then there's a different, I never had to do it, but I had to have the person sign a paper that they weren't in the armed forces. There's a different lane or decision tree that you have to go through with that. But I know landlords in Texas because they allow you to take doors, they allow you to take possessions and stuff. You can go in there and take their TVs. I'm like, to me, that's just like, no, I'll just wait there because then that can also turn a different way for your property managers and put them in a volatile situation. So I'm always thinking robustly, like, yeah, you could do that, but then how else would that turn out to them? And so, I always have to think about that, But there's some folks that pride themselves like, I'm taking everything, and they'll put it in a lock storage and like, when you pay the rent, you can get this back. It's very interesting.
So this is pretty high level and greatly appreciated. For everyone that's listening and looking, this is the goal to end up here, right? We don't start here. Unless you have a ton of money to work with, then maybe you do start here. But I think even someone would recommend that because you need to learn.
Yeah, I think you need to learn how to operate. That's another thing that I've seen is that syndications have become very sexy. And so there were people that knew how to raise money and it's been a detriment. You'll see it in the news all the time. Like, oh, I lost all of my capital. And you have to remember, like, these are folks in nest eggs. You know, my mother's money, she's retired, is in my properties there. You know, it's, you know, my money's in there. And so I'm always wary when someone doesn't also have skin in the game in their properties. And then I also want to know their experience, you know, like how long have you been doing it? Like, what was your track record before this? And so that's what I'm always betting a sponsor, like, all right, can you show me or recommend anything, at least 2 to 3 people that, like I say, hey, they delivered on what they said they were going to deliver on, or a property manager, and be like, yes, this is, you know, I can understand that he's accountable for this money that I'm, because it's not a little sum of money that we are requesting from individuals. If you're raising capital, most of the time it's a minimum of $50,000, you know, and sometimes we'll have people give up to 250 or $1 million in the classes there. And you know, actually that's a good kind of pivot, because there's ways to get paid inside of multifamily. One of the biggest things that you get paid on is the acquisition fee. And so normally 2 to 3% of the sell price is an acquisition fee that you will get paid for finding it, underwriting the property. The thing that I'm always worried about is that people doing a lot of deals very fast to survive off acquisition fees and not truly stabilizing the product. Because you have to, you know, you can't just move on to the next one without stabilizing that property first, or just make sure it's at a good point before you're going to raise on to the next one, because guess what? It's going to fall at the end. And then next thing you know, you're doing a cash call, or you're giving a sad email saying, hey, we're not doing distributions this month, or this quarter. It's actually normally quarterly that you're doing distributions on it. The other way that you get paid is during asset management fees. Asset management fees can be 1.5% or 2% of cash flow. And what that asset manager is going to do, that asset manager is going to really be your eyes and ears protecting the asset. So I will meet, you know, I meet actually weekly with a lot of the property managers, and we're going over certain metrics versus I can actually pull it up, but I can actually pull it up better. Visuals are always much better. I do construction stuff. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I call it's go time. So yeah. So when it's go time, you know, you have to have, so this is one thing I always have. So when it's go time, for each property in every area, I already know what's it going to take to turn the property over. So I already have everything outlined and knowing, like, price wise, and saying, hey, if it's going to take us $7,000 to turn this property over, I'm already accounting that, guess what? This is all the things that we can put in here in the prices that we're going to get for everything we need, including labor. So I'll have everything. Like, sometimes we're doing tub refinishing, we're reglazing it, but I'll have everything from the kitchen appliances, and actually stop using them for kitchen appliances. Now I've locally, Gerhardt's will send stuff down to Alabama to me. Gerhardt's still family owned. I deal with Ali Gerhardt. Actually dealing with her.
I'm sorry, Randy. I DJ for them.
Yeah, yeah, they're like, I let the family own stuff, and they still have been they've been very great for me over the last probably decade.
Do you find costs for renovations to be similar in those areas than here?
It's kind of funny. I think yes and no. It depends on the meetings that you're going to have with the managers and how much you're paying. So depending on the size of the building, in the South, you may be paying a so for that large building, let's say you have a 242 unit, you're going to need at least one leasing coordinator and then one management I don't call it officer, manager, let's call it a manager. Then you'll need at least 1 or 2 full-time repairmen, and then you'll need a porter or somebody that's going to be in there to help them. So normally, out of the repair people, I'm going to have one that can specialize in, like, heaters or water, and then one general one, and then a helper for them. And so within that, we'll also go say, guess what? How many holes? I just see the peephole. Doesn't have any holes. How many units can you go through and turn over for each week and per labor? So do we have to hire some exterior people? Meaning, do we have any third parties that we need to hire for like roof? Or do we know, like, guess what, HVAC, does that person do an HVAC? Like, I know I can get a 2-ton air handler and condenser, like, especially like a goodies. I can get it for like 2,600 both with a heat exchanger. Like, I know I can get those, for that price. So you can go to Rowley's right now and get one for 3,000, but you can get it, if you buy it in bulk, you can probably get it a little bit lower than that. So those are one of the things that you want to have within it. The next thing you want to have in your metrics is that this is called like I'll pull you this up real quick. It's a clean unit tracker. So when you're going through each unit and you're doing your due diligence, you want to know what every unit has. So you want to mark that down so once you're actually going through your business plan, like, all right, this one was good. This is the date on this one. We have a couple more years on this one, so we can leverage rents increasing CapEx and be like, all right, this is the proper business plan that we can have. Then when, like, guess what, this is going to actually end. So I'll have a clean unit tracker.
So when you're buying these buildings, are you going down personally and going through all of this?
Yep. Okay. I'll also will do a market survey. So the market surveys, I'll actually do myself because I always want to make sure the numbers are good. And that market survey is going to be like, everybody in that area, I want to know what their app fees are, admin fees. Do they have laundry, washer, dryer hookups, pet deposits, pet rents? Is it coming with cable Wi-Fi? Does it have parking, pool, gym, clubhouse, bus center? I want to know who my competition is. And I'm calling up there and be like, hey, what specials are you running? Because I want to know, guess what? If you're across the street, I need to drive people here. So let me see what I can do on it. And then I have definitely, this is my interior renovation, like, budget list. I'll keep this here for like my black appliances. Because that was one thing that I had to know coming from Philadelphia to down south, is that I was over rehabbing. I wish I had enough time to go into my pictures. Like, the first property I had on this 20 unit I bought in Houston. That's another story. I bought this on a plane on a handshake deal, which is crazy. I will tell that afterwards because it was an anomaly. But I over rehabbed this unit itself, and I was like, damn, why can't I get the rents? Like, this is beautiful. I over rehabbed, and it wasn't what the rent was calling for. And so the rest of them was like, all right, I don't have to do this because that's not what it was calling for. So I'll know what, the cabinets, lighting, and things like that. So I'll have a budget like, hey, this is what the black appliances can go for. You talk that over with your property manager, and then you also have your MMR. Your MMR is something daily that they go over with you with. So it's going to be something that they're going to be going through with me for the week. And it really is like the occupancy, move-ins, skips. A skip is when you file an eviction for someone, but they leave before you actually have to give them out. That's a skip. Total evictions for the week, vacant units, number of notices for like 30 days out, total net occupancy, vacant unit details, the week recap, how many work orders. I do want to track the work orders. I want to see if there was any like common things with work orders that are coming in particular buildings. I also want to see the response time. I normally want anything done that is simple done within that day. Because again, it's important about culture. People will write everything up. If it's simple, it needs to be done that day on a building. So I'm looking at the time that they're having to finish that. Then I'm looking at traffic, the applications, collections. Like, I think I had some of these are filled out. Yeah. This is actually a template from, this is actually in Lubbock, Texas. It's actually a property I have in Lubbock. It's a 92 unit. So it'll actually show you what the economic occupancy is. And you can see kind of the trends that we had from the 5/18 week to the current physical occupancy. So the The economic occupancy means like the property is occupied, but they're just not paying. So that's an economic occupancy. Physical occupancy means that's what this is totally vacant. So there's two types of occupancies. So I'm looking at these trends and like, all right, are we getting better? We were getting better. So, you know, I'm looking at those trends and they send me over a bunch of other spreadsheets that we go over and scorecards that I'm looking. I'll secret shop my property managers. So I'll go down there sometimes or send someone and be like, hey, let's see how they're treating you. Because customer service is really, really important. And I stress culture. You hear me say it a lot. Culture is really important of making a person feel like they're just not a paycheck. So I'm really big on our property managers, like, hey, these e-cards, it takes nothing to take that document of their birthdays and things and send an e-card out. You can automate it. We do it all the time. It's technology. You can automate it. It takes nothing to set that up and automate it to make someone feel like, hey, it's special right here. That's all. People just want to feel special and like, and we should do that. And then make sure that's one thing I'm really big on. And cleanliness. Like, I don't like to see, guess what? Oh, we have a porter. They should be picking that stuff up. I don't want to see anything around. I don't want to see dog poop around. If there's dog poop, I didn't know this until I had a situation where we had like a notorious person not picking up his dog poop. You can actually send it in like CSI and they'll actually give you the breed of dog and track it down for you. You can actually do that. And so we had to cross-reference it for those dogs and who was eating units. You can actually track people down on dog poop, which I didn't know until one of the managers, it wasn't my idea, it was somebody management company suggested it. Like, you can track down dog poop. I was like, wow. I didn't know you could track down dog poop. Yeah. You can track down dog poop. I was like, yeah, it's crazy out here. But yes, it worked. So we had to find that dog poop, the notorious dog poop, were not picking up his stuff, whatever. Like, yes, we know it's you, you know, so. And that's the other thing also, just kind of speaking on insurance, because that's another big thing about the properties. I'm gonna give you a couple of stories of insurance. In Texas, insurance has gone up from about 500 a door to now about 1,000 a door. Just because of all of the catastrophes and the weather storms that they had over the years. Even if you're not in the flood zone, if you're near a flood zone, you're like 18 to 2,000 a door in those areas. Also, insurance will also look at what breeds. So I never understood why they didn't want breeds, but they didn't want the breeds because they can attack someone. So that's why a lot of insurance companies will restrict breeds in the buildings. I'm like, it's the little ass dogs they're always biting, like trying to bite somebody, which is, it's like asinine to me. But the insurance companies are scared of the big ones, but it's always the little small ones that'll give us the worst issues. They're the ones. But it's an insurance thing that they don't want it to bite children and anything like that. So that was the big thing. And then also how insurance can and will have you making a call. You know, I had an issue in Louisville, Kentucky, where a woman shot her husband in the unit. It's an unforeseen circumstance. Shot and killed him. Our insurance went from $700 to like $2,600 a month, a door. Oh. Now we're in the red because now we have to account for all of that. So we have to tell investors like, yes, this is the situation we have. Now we have to create a business plan on, guess what, next year, and actually like, all right, give it some time and be like, all right, let's figure out how to get a new policy in. Because insurance companies also keep like credit, insurance companies keep a toll on everything that's going on per neighborhood and everything there as well. So we're in the process of looking to, go ahead and try to get this insurance lowered. And that was just a shame. That woman was like 72 like that. And like, it's crazy. And I think they charged her because I think they said that she could have left the unit, but she went to the bedroom to grab the gun and came back and shot him. So I think now they're going to charge. I hope she gets off from that, but yeah, it's a crazy situation. Where you can't, those are those things where all the underwriting in that spreadsheet, there was nothing in there was saying this 72-year-old woman was going to marry some guy or fall some guy with some love in prison. He gets out 3 weeks later, he's choking her on the balcony and shoots him. There's no column in there that I can click on there for that. Yeah. I can't predict that. You can't predict those things. The only things you can do is try to be proactive and have honest conversations with your investors and like, hey, this is what it is. And come with a plan, like this is our plan of how we're going to get this back on track. And unfortunately I've had to have those conversations. Those are the rough ones to have.
But that's with something that big, if you're 50 doors, goes up $2,000 a door, it's $100,000.
It's impactful.
Yeah.
It's impactful.
No, that's not $100,000, it's $1 million. That changes your
everything,
your entire building, like your negative income.
It changes everything. We're bleeding.
Can we sell the building at that point? Because that doesn't move on to.
No, we're actually looking to sell the building at this point. Yes.
I mean, that insurance bill will not move on to the next owner.
No, they can get their own policy right there and then, yeah.
And what happened to you would never even enter into.
No, they'll take an account, like say, hey, this area has this report of it, but it won't be deemed on them like it was deemed on our company there.
Yeah. So you guys are trying to sell that building?
Huh?
Can't pay a premium for a new policy. It's not worth it.
Right now the premiums is so high because it's so recent, but we're like 4 or 5 months in. So we are looking, we got a BOV, which is a broker value of opinion, to see if we were going to sell the building, what it would look like here. Because we had to sell it early. This is actually 3 years earlier than we want to sell it. This is in Louisville, Kentucky. What's the hit to the investors? Because we're still in the middle of executing. So we have to take all of that in account and we'll weigh it, on what that looks like, but we don't want to take a loss for our investors. It's really for your investors. You don't want to take a loss for your investors. So
the refi.
not at this point. No, not at this point. No, we still have to change out like 32 air condensers. We have some stuff to do. But this is real time stuff that happens in real estate because it's not always this peachy. It's quite often more so fires that happen. Anybody has on Instagram, I've always put it, I think you follow Instagram, I put up like, oh, this day I was having a good day, and then say, oh, they had a fire in this unit. And like, God, great. The first thing is like, is anybody hurt? Okay, great. No one's hurt. All right, let's get this one. Right. And that's just interesting because like in some of these older buildings that are built in the 70s, their condensers are built over the in the bathroom above the shower head. That's where the forced air units are at, which is really different there. Yeah, that's where they did them. A lot of them are in Texas or like in the bathrooms above the showers there. It's really, really interesting, some of those areas.
Well, thank you. This was very, very informative.
Oh yeah, I was going to keep talking because I could keep talking.
No, and we'll probably I can talk a little bit longer, but everyone, thanks for being here. Anyone have any questions for him?
And I can tell you about that handshake deal I did on the plane from Lubbock and got a 20 unit. So it's like crazy.
Cool.
Awesome. I have a question.
Brandy.
So it sounds like you have a lot of units, but how did you get started on your first one? Like, how did you get the capital to even branch out to get the first unit that you purchased?
Is that like first residential or first multifamily?
Multifamily. Well, I guess either four plus units.
Four plus units. So what I did is that I had refi. So I was buying distressed assets in Philadelphia. So I was buying at like 50 to 55% ARV. So that's buying in rehab. So I had a lot of capital on those. So I had to squirrel money away. And so when the time was coming to go ahead and say, hey, let me go ahead and scale, I had thought about it previously because I've almost done it beforehand. And I was like, oh no, I had like $200,000. And then all I did was chop it up and bought like 5 or 6 different buildings. And then when I looked back at it, I was like, man, I could have put that $200,000 into something bigger. But the main thing I didn't know how to do was underwrite. That was like my biggest hurdle. And it was an unknown that I didn't know how to underwrite and evaluate the multifamily properties. That was like my biggest hurdle. And once I got that, I was like, oh, this is not that. There are some subtle differences. But once I knew like, okay, this is what I can do and it's how to evaluate them, it was good. But now I would sell properties. Like every time I sell properties off, I'm just going ahead and taking that money, pay the taxes because it's hard to do a 1031 exchange and things to line up. One, you have to get a third party. It's just a lot of nuances with it. But now I'm selling off assets that I've had back from like 17 and 18 and just having that money. And then I'm just taking and putting it into multifamily.
I wanted to show you guys a really simple version because you're like super high level.
Yeah.
Let me just plug this in and show one thing I wanted to show, something that I've kind of been working on. And if you're thinking about, well, how do I scale up without going the syndication route, right? Because
I would think you should do my first thing is multifamily. You can get into I think that is probably the best entry point right now, and you get some bang for your buck is those 7 to 15 unit buildings right now. There's a lot of bang for your buck from like families out there that just don't want their buildings or they're distressed, and you can get in those for a low offering price or asking price.
So I'll use this as one LLC I have that I started, it's just me and another partner. So it's 50-50. We started buying properties in Carbon County. It's like the Pocono area because in 2020, when we started this LLC, I looked at Philadelphia, I didn't want to deal with it. And I was already having my problems with Philly, and Delaware County was too expensive. And then Lehigh Valley was too expensive. So I just kept pushing out. And I found Carbon County, and I had a virtual assistant calling, like high equity properties, landlord properties, so they don't live at the property. And we were getting answers. We were getting people saying, "Oh yeah, I'll sell you this." I had one guy say, 34 North Nescapac. The guy's like, "Oh yeah, I have a triplex that I'll sell it for 60 grand." And we went and looked at it. It was a 5-unit with like a 8,000 square foot garage. He thought it was a triplex. And I was like, okay, so now it needed a lot of work. It needed $200,000 of work, but I got it for 60 grand, right? Where am I getting a 5-unit around here for 60 grand? Nowhere, right? So we bought properties over a 4 or 5 year, 3-4 year period, with a lot of them with renovation loans. So, I'm putting 20% down, but then I'm borrowing the financing, the renovation funds, and I'm basically burning out of them. I'm buying them, I'm renovating them, I'm raising the rents, and I'm refinancing. And I did them one after the other. And now we're clumping them into a blanket mortgage where, the ARVs on these properties, like I bought them for 600 and I put 340 into them over that time. And now the ARVs are 1.355 or so. So I'm able to pay off all my original debt, put it into one mortgage, get my money back out. And all this money is money that's been borrowed. It's not even our own personal money. And now I have a portfolio that makes sense. And my plan is, I'm doing that a few different places, is eventually I'm going to take that money and go buy an even bigger building, right? So instead of managing six buildings with 30 units, I'd rather manage one building with 60 units, right? So, and you could find these deals. Like they're not impossible to find. If I found them, you could find them, right? Like I had someone in the Philippines calling Carbon County and people were saying yes, so like it can work for anyone. You don't have to start big. You can just start piecing together a small portfolio, and then you kind of start your own quote unquote fund. And then once you've done it, now you feel the confidence to say, hey, well, I can do this on a bigger scale. Not maybe, don't jump up to 100 units, but maybe I syndicate and do a 60-unit building because I'm doing 30 right now, right? So this is a small example of an LLC that now it took time, and this is the other thing. Most people don't want to put the time into this stuff, but it takes 5 to 10 years to make anything make sense, right? So unless you're planning on working for free for 4 or 5 years, don't.
I've already said it. It's a long game.
Yeah.
I always tell people I've been in both since 2009. I went full time in 16, so I took 7 years, and then I went back because guess what? It's a long term, and I'm glad you said it. You don't have to do 100 units. It's all about what your end goal is. What my goal is that I want to show folks that I can handle large sums of money because I want to buy into a major sports team. And so my scale up is going to be a little bit different, where it's not going to be real estate any longer, is that I'm going to be taking a fund to buy a minority ownership into a major sports team, whether it's hockey, baseball. All I'm doing is building my track record up of handling, 7 figures, 8 figures of money right now. That's the goal right there. So you don't have to go into 150, 250 units. It's all about the end goal of where you're seeing yourself and you're being at. So I'm glad you made that point right there. I always tell people, like, what do you want to net and the lifestyle you want to live? Just write it out. Unshakable is a book by Tony Robbins called Unshakable. One of my favorites. And he's like, if you just write down everything, like how many vacations you want, type of car you want to drive, like even if you want like a second girlfriend or wife, just write out what you want to do for it. You'll realize, guess what? You didn't need that amount that you need. And then you just like, oh, I just need this amount of buildings to go ahead and cover the lifestyle, the life I want. It really is.
Yeah.
So I'm glad everybody doesn't have to go big. And I made singles and doubles will get you to the Hall of Fame just as quickly as home runs.
And most people I talk to that call me, they're like, oh, call Will, he's a real estate friendly investor or agent. I have this conversation with them and I never hear from them ever again because I want to scare the living hell out of them because it's you really got to have the stomach for this. You deal with some crap. Like Chris has a perfect duplex in Lansdowne, great tenants, and then Saturday morning he gets a call. His tenant upstairs had a psychological break, kicked down the front door, punched the tenant, got tackled by the cops. Like stuff like that you can't
predict.
Yeah.
I was telling people you cannot.
Yeah.
She lived in the unit for 3 years and she's almost 16. Couple days late on rent once in a while.
Yeah.
Can't predict this type of
Never
things.
more than a week.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
You gotta be
something.
agile in real estate.
Yeah.
You have to be agile.
Yeah.
You have to be agile in real estate.
You gotta have the stomach for it. And it's all right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming. Hope this was really, really, really insightful. And this will be saved. Anyone wants to look at it on the all of our social medias. But thank you all. Have a great night.
One question, is it okay to tell?
20-unit deal I got.
Yeah, so I think it sounds to you guys really interesting for this.
Trust.
Well, does he have a contact information?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I do agree.
You have your contact information you want to share with everyone?
Oh yes.
Here, I'll let you
I'll put it in the chat.
type it in here. It's really small. You can see.
I'm old, man. Can't see that. It's these 44-year-old eyes.
Let me share it in the chat and give him a follow. I'm gonna start following. Glad Mark introduced us.
Yeah, I think my last things was showing everything that goes wrong in real estate. I think I was scaring people.
Yeah.
I did a whole week of everything real time of what I can't see this. Yeah, make it bigger. I can't see it.
Oh, you know what? If I
No, but that's the problem. People don't share enough of those stories, and then you think it's easy or it's great, but no, there's horror stories for sure.
Someone on Instagram has a Bugatti, right?
Yeah,
that's in real estate.
My Instagram right here is.
What's that? Yeah, every one of them. There's a
And my Instagram is franklin.parnell.
Like what?
It's my middle name. If you might want to ask, Noel was actually taken, so I had to use my middle name.
There you go.
But if people always say it's like, why Franklin.Parnell? It's like, yeah, my real name is there's another Noel Parnell out there.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you coming out. Everyone's got that? All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Get your rent paid by